High altitude gardening, it's for somebody who really likes a challenge. Join us for a garden tour. Hi, welcome to Barely Homesteading. Today we're going to take a tour of our garden. Now I know that up at this altitude we're probably a month or two behind most of the lowlander gardens, but we're pretty proud of everything that we've been able to do up here. So let's take a look. Okay, first thing we have here is our strawberry bed. This is the first year that we've really had strawberries come through, and we've enjoyed eating those as a family. Hopefully next year we'll get enough to start preserving them. Now along the side of the fence, when we built our garden, we were worried about animals burrowing under, and with good reason, because we had several do it. So we decided to put very thin, narrow beds right along the fence, the entire length of where the garden is, to help prevent that. And they've done really well. And in those gardens, they're narrow and they're not hugely deep, so they've worked really well for onions and for herbs and things that are very aromatic to help repel some of those predators. So that's what we've got in most of those, along with the wild rose. Now one thing that we've been having happen this week is you might notice that the air is quite smoky. Every morning it smells heavily of smoke, and this morning we've noticed that we actually have some ash on some of our beds. The forest fires are quite a ways away, but the wind is bringing all of that down here, and we're hoping and praying that the fires don't get any closer, because that could definitely put a crimp in our harvest this year. In this bed we've got these cold frames that just fit right on top of the beds, and we decided to try an experiment in this bed. We found some short season watermelon and cantaloupe seeds, and the plants are doing quite well, and we've got a few little melons started, but we'll see if there's actually enough time for them to ripen before fall hits. But these little cold frame toppers have really helped keep the bed and the soil warmer earlier, and hopefully it'll help in the fall keep it warmer longer so they can grow. In this bed, we've got broccoli in this half and cabbage down there. Both of those have done really well up here in our experience in the few years that we've been gardening. So we're hoping for a good crop of both of those. Right here we have celery. Now this isn't the traditional celery that grows in a clump that you find in the grocery store. We were unable to grow that here. We had to go find a short season Chinese celery. And it just grows in individual stems like this. And the stem and the leaves are all edible. And so when we pick it, we just chop it up and add it to whatever we want to season it with. We also have some carrots coming along. Carrots are one of those things that the kids love. We can bottle them and eat all year long, and so we've just tucked carrots in wherever we had an open spot, and we've tried to stagger it some, so we'll have carrots of differing sizes to try to spread out the harvest. And then down there at the far end we have more broccoli, and in the middle we have a lavender plant. Now we planted the lavender because lavender is one of those things that will help repel moths. And one of the very few insects that we have problems with is moths and caterpillars on our cruciferous vegetables like our broccoli and our cabbage and our cauliflower. So we tried this lavender last year, and while it didn't solve the problem, it definitely helped repel some of those moths, and we had less caterpillars that we had to clean off when we were eating our vegetables. And that's one of the greatest things about gardening at high altitude, is the lack of insects and predators. Well, not predators, but insects. You can cut the predator part out. So in this bed we have some fall lettuce that we planted. We planted it not very long ago, so we'll get a fall crop of lettuce. Down there we've got some pumpkin plants, or a single pumpkin plant growing. Eventually it'll fill the whole bed, And you can see some pumpkins coming on. This is one of the pumpkins that we started inside and planted out here. We planted quite a few pumpkins. We had quite a few take inside, but we lost several to late snowstorms and to baby bear pulling them up. So we're very excited to have some of them growing some really big pumpkins there. Here are a few more of those pumpkins. And then we have some basil in the middle. And for up here, that's basil. That's really growing well. Basil and herbs are one of the things that have a hard time up here. So I know lowlander basil will be much bigger than that, but we're very excited to get that crop. And at the far end is one of our acorn squashes. Acorn squash we've had quite good success with up here, but we have been unable to get any of the summer squashes to grow in this climate. Over here we've got some asparagus. We planted some crowns and some seeds and several years ago, and we're hoping maybe next year to get our first crop. But we'll see. We're hopeful. On this side we've got some beans. We built this nice structure. We have pole beans in the middle growing up, and then on each side we have bush beans to maximize the area and our bean crop. Because beans are one of those things that works really well. You can can them, you can freeze them, and just eat them all year round. Over here in the corner, we have a blackberry. Obviously, it's still pretty small. We haven't even got a harvest from it. It's one of those things that we planted for the future. We actually transplanted this from my grandmother's garden, but she only lives at about 4,500 feet altitude, and the first year we had it, it completely died back, and we thought we had killed it, but surprise, surprise, it came back. They're very hardy, and we're hoping that now that it's getting accustomed to climate, it'll really take off. We have a few peas that we planted along this fence line. We had some extra space and had some extra seeds, and we thought we'd try to maximize our pea harvest. Have not been entirely happy with the peas that we planted this year. They're kind of short. They haven't given us a really great crop, so we'll probably try something different next year. Okay, and over here by the fence, we have raspberries. Once again, we planted these. We borrowed some from my grandmother's garden. Completely died back the first year as it adjusted to this altitude and climate. Right now, they're growing fairly well, and next year we're hoping to actually get some berries. And eventually, we'd like them to spread all along the edges of the fence. You can never have too many raspberries, in my opinion. In this bed, we have another tall frame, and we did our peas along the center, our unfortunate peas. We definitely got some of them, but not near as many as we had wanted. And then we had room on the edges, so we did some carrots. Thank you, Rooster. Over here we have, let's wait for the noisy car. Over here we have potatoes. Now we've tried potatoes both in the bed and in the pots to see if we can maximize growth and which one works better with drainage. Because that's the problem that we've had up here with potatoes is drainage. So finding that right mix of that would be great. And as you can see, they're starting their fall decline. The leaves are starting to brown, and hopefully it won't be too much longer before we pick them. And see if we actually get any potatoes. The tops are doing really well, but there's just one of those things that you never know what's underneath the ground. And then over here we have calendula. And this is an herb that's actually growing quite well. And we harvest the flowers or the leaves and dry them, and we can use them to make things like sunburn ointment. We have a daughter with very sensitive skin, and she cannot always use the commercial sunburn ointment. And so we mix this with some aloe and some beeswax and oil in it. It makes a really good soothing cream for her. Over here we used to have turnips, but we ate them all. They were delicious. Over here we've got a second crop of turnips coming on. It won't be too much longer before we'll be able to start eating those. Over here, we've got a few pepper plants coming. Now, this is the best pepper plant we've ever had up here because of the altitude and the climate. We started these inside, and then we moved them out under the cold frame that's now over the melons. Next year, we're going to build a bigger cold frame and try to keep the cold frame on these longer to really maximize the growth, because this is the only way that we are going to be able to get peppers. We're not going to have enough this year to do anything like massive amounts of salsa, but at least we'll have a few to enjoy.
Okay.
Over here is a cucumber, and again, this is just about the best cucumber we've ever had. We started it inside and then moved it out here under the cold frame, and that's definitely made a difference. You can see right here we've got a big old cucumber growing, and we're leaving that on the vine as long as possible. Oh look, there's another one ready to pick. We're leaving the big one on the vine as long as possible because we want to harvest the seeds, and hopefully we'll be able to get them used to the climate, year after year if we keep harvesting the best seeds. We have here some chamomile that reseeded from last year. Chamomile actually grows fairly well up here. In fact, I've seen it growing wild in some of the fields. And that's just another great herb to have on hand.
And then, of course, some more pepper plants and cucumber.
All right, so this is one of our acorn squashes. Now, this one was one of the ones that we started inside and then moved outside when it was a decent-sized little plant. We're getting quite a few squash on it. Now, this plant, we had planted them out here, and then we actually got another few inches or maybe even a foot of snow, I can't remember, afterwards. But this one survived. Many of them didn't, and so we had to plant some from seeds. And you can see the difference in the plant between the one that we started inside and the one that we planted as seed outside. And there's a huge difference in the sizes, and so I think we'll definitely try to start some inside at a later point in time. We have here another lavender just to help this area, and again some carrots thrown in to some spots we had from when some things did not come up. Over here we have our cauliflower, and cauliflower has done quite well for us in the past, and we've got quite a few plants here. We're excited about that. The kids love roasted cauliflower, and they'll just eat it right up. Over here are our Brussels sprouts. Now, this is the third year we've planted Brussels sprouts, and we've never yet got a harvest because our growing season is just too short. We started these inside this year in the spring, and we are hoping that there will be a long enough growing season to really be able to harvest some of them. You can start to see some little Brussels sprouts forming in the joints of the leaves down there, but we just need to give them time. All right. So along this fence in these narrow beds, we generally plant sunflowers and garlic. Now, most of our garlic is already done and dug up for the season. We didn't get a great harvest this year because I forgot to plant it in the fall and we planted it in the spring, and it just didn't have enough time to grow. The sunflowers are a little bit behind too because we tried seeding from sunflowers that we had grown last year, and I just don't think the seeds were quite good enough. So they're just behind. And a lot of them did not come up. But it's really fun to be able to drive up our road towards our house and just see a whole row of sunflowers here greeting us as we come home. Over here, we have the greenhouse that Lumberjack built. And it is a permanent structure on top of this raised bed. And we built it because we could not grow tomatoes. And we really wanted to. I really wanted to anyway. And he was very obliging. So we built this structure, and we've got 4 great tomato plants, at least great for us. We've got a lot of fruit coming on. And this greenhouse has just kept it nice and warm for these heat-loving plants. We've also got some carrots in there, and over here we've got some carrots that are going to seed that we are waiting to harvest the seeds so we can plant those next year. Seeing as how our growing season is only maybe 120 days, the tomatoes just really needed some extra help. We needed to prolong the season on each end and just create something warmer, because even at nighttime in the summer, it's in the mid-50s. It rarely gets over 60 at night, and that just wasn't good enough for the tomatoes. So we've got a couple plots. Again, we planted some carrots in one of them just to maximize our space. And over here we have 3 blueberry plants, only one of which made it through the winter. We're working on that. We're learning every year, trying to improve. And then in between we planted some more potatoes, just because we love potatoes and hoping for a really good crop this year.
You want to talk about the dill?
There's also a dill over here that reseeded from 2 years ago. They've kept coming back, but every year it's less, and this year it's just 1. So next year I'll have to actually plant seeds for that again. But the dill has been great. We harvest that. We use it to make all of our own pickles. And dill actually grows quite well. And cilantro. Those are 2 of the herbs that probably do the best up here. Over in this corner we had planted a whole bunch of pumpkins to try to do some vertical gardening up these fences with the pumpkins and maximize the space so they don't take up a whole bed as they spread. But due to snow and baby bear, only one of them survived, and it's a pretty sad little thing. Don't know if we'll actually get any pumpkins off of it, but it's sure trying. And so we had thrown some carrots in to try to maximize space and get a nice late fall harvest of carrots. So that's our garden. It's a work in progress. It's something that we learn. We're striving to just make it a little bit better every year, and that's all we can ask for up here. So thank you for joining in. As always, use it up, wear it out, make it do or do without. Thank you for joining us. Please like and subscribe.